Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Powerplay. We're here today with Joshua Lee, who is no stranger to the futsal scene. So I'll leave Josh to give his brief introduction.
Hi guys, my name is Joshua. I'm 27 years old. I'm currently a player for Selangor United.
Okay, so besides futsal, which we all know you for, what do you do behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, by day, I'm a cybersecurity auditor with PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and by night, I'm a futsal player.
Okay, so let's just say, so being a professional player, right? So you're juggling work and playing. So technically, you're doing two full-time jobs, would you say?
Yes.
Okay,
That'll be accurate.
Okay, so do you think that what are the struggles that you face when you're doing this?
For me, I think when I first started out early in my futsal career, about 4 years ago, 2019, it was very hard to balance between shifting your mindset from when you're at work and segregating that life with when you're in the futsal scene. So futsal requires a lot of, it drains you a bit mentally, and work does the same. So to be at 100% at both sides, it can be challenging at times.
So it takes a toll lah.
Yes, it does take a toll.
Okay, so what are your coping mechanisms when it comes to balancing the two?
I think over the years, I've actually one of the key things is I've actually modified my sleeping patterns. As an athlete, I think it's important we have enough rest.
Yep.
So I've actually modified it in such a way where I can actually cope with getting enough sleep and also giving the maximum I can during working hours.
Okay, so could you just break down like what a day in the life of Josh Lee looks like?
Okay, so normally I get up around, if I have no meetings in the morning, because now I usually work from home, I will wake up around 9:30, and then I will just work until the end of working hours, which is normally 6:30, and I'll quickly get ready, have a quick bite and head off to training.
Okay.
So after training, I will have another meal just to make sure that I have enough food for the day. Sustenance, and probably I will do a bit more work once I get home, and then after that, I will just get some rest at home.
Okay, so like roughly, do you think you're getting enough rest?
I have to admit sometimes I do sleep a bit later than usual, but I think this depends on our peak period. So in accounting firms, we have certain periods of time where we're a lot busier than the rest of the year. So right now would be the middle of the year, so it will be not as busy. Okay. So I can still manage. But normally when it gets to the peak period, that's when I start having to really dial down on the time management.
Okay, so for Selangor Tot, right? For some teams, of course, they train once a week. Some teams twice a week. But for Selangor Tot, I think it's 5 times a week.
Yep, about 5 to 6 times.
So essentially, it's literally two different jobs lah, because you're both doing it throughout the entire weekdays lah.
Correct.
Okay. So that can be quite intense. But do you think that number of sessions is what is required?
Definitely for the sport of futsal, I feel a lot of it has to do with tactical awareness, and these are the kind of things, if you don't practice or you don't keep in check mentally, it may be the difference on game day. So preparing for all this, even if it's just 1-2 hours a day, because we do alternate our sessions. Sometimes we have really strong, intense training, and then sometimes we dial it down and focus on recovery, focus on just working back on our mistakes and just improving for the next game.
Okay, so I think it's quite it can be very taxing lah. So it's not as luxurious of a life that people imagine it to be lah, to be a professional player.
Correct. There's a lot of work.
Yeah, so it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes, but all that people see is probably your goal on Instagram lah.
Probably.
Right. So yes, so it's a lot harder than it seems, right? So I know you used to play football first, right? And I think you could have made it quite far if you pursued that sport, right? So what made you give up football, so to speak?
I don't think I really gave up football. I think it's just I found more passion towards futsal.
Okay.
So I think football is quite saturated here in Malaysia, and the main reason why I chose futsal over football is that I could still manage a career pathway, and also at the side I can still do what I love and what I'm passionate about, which is futsal.
Okay, so I mean I would say the big difference is that like if you choose football as a career path, to make it has to be your all in lah.
Yes, it has to be an
Right, and then you quite likely won't have a backup.
Yes.
Right, so futsal here can be viewed as a part-time career because your office hours are not touched lah.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So and do you believe your background in football has helped your futsal career?
Definitely. For me, I think it was the other way around. I think most kids these days at grassroots age, they actually go from futsal to football.
Yeah.
Using futsal as the basics. But for me, I went from having the basics in a football field and then translating that into the futsal court. So I've had to modify how I play, the touches I took, the type of passes I make. All that has to modify and has to be switched up a bit just to adapt to the game of futsal.
Okay, so when let's say you started playing football, so I'm sure your coaches at that point in time, because I also, I'm not from a football academy, but I've heard a lot of coaches mention along the lines of like, so if you are a footballer, you don't play futsal, right? And the vice versa, I don't think it really applies, because at that point in time, there are not many futsal coaches around lah to tell the futsal players to just focus on futsal. But a lot of football coaches seem to think that futsal spoils footballers' games, right? Do you think that's a myth?
I don't think it's a myth. I just think that some coaches have a different approach to the game. So if some coaches want to use football tactical, sometimes the futsal players may not be able to adapt, and vice versa. So because football has a larger use of space, a larger use of the time you have on the ball, and also I feel like futsal is a bit more intense.
Yeah.
So you don't really have much time on the ball. It's very tight spaces. Decisions have to be made quick, and every decision can lead to the next attack or the next turnover.
Okay, but based on your experience, as you've mentioned, you think that futsal does benefit footballers lah.
Yes, definitely.
Right, especially at a younger age because of the space that they have to handle with, the number of times they would touch a ball in a session.
Yep.
Right, getting out of tight spaces, the number of one-on-one contact that they probably would have. Right, so, okay, that's very cool. So as you mentioned, right, so you are a player for Selangor Tot, right? So prior to this, when you were in N9, of course you were under a Malaysian coach and all of this. So in Selangor Tot, I know that they have now have a foreign coach. I think it's the Chonburi's assistant coach, who is now Selangor Tot's head coach, right? So being and training under a foreign coach, is there a significant difference in terms of quality, or if it's not quality, what do you think the main differences are?
So I've been training with Selangor Tot for about, I think, close to a year now, about 8 months since pre-season until now. I think what he has brought in terms of quality is the attention to small details. So I think previously we did not have the type of we did not have that kind of examination to small details as much as our current coach has. So of course the level of players to match this quality has to increase as well.
Yes.
So that we are able to sort of reach that type of quality that the coach wants. But I think with time, with practice, I think we will be able to achieve that. And I also believe that what he brought over was a good culture from Chonburi. So we have actually replicated a lot of the warm-ups, exercises, drills, a lot of smaller 3v3 sort of sessions to sort of improve the players before they go to the 4v4 main game.
Okay, so I would say, based on what you're saying, is that the attention to detail is the difference maker lah.
Yes.
Right. So once it reaches a certain point, right, the levels of players I think would be relatively the same, but it's the quality in training and the attention to detail, and then implementing that smaller details in the game which gives you that difference at the top lah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your team as well now there are like 2 foreign players as well. So this is another thing that MPFL, which I think is amazing, is that they started allowing foreigners to participate not just as coaches, as players as well. So in your team I think there's 2, which is Neto, and from, I think he was playing in the Thailand league before this.
Correct.
And Hirata, who is from Japan national team.
Yes.
Right? So of course the foreign players are of significant quality. So what's it like being in the same team as them, playing with them, and do you think there's a significant gap in terms of quality?
I think the quality gap, for me, I think it's still there. I think they are of significant difference. I think they really bring an impact to the game. I think it's visible during game day that they have the experience of a professional player, and I feel like to take that next step to reach their level of quality, I think it has to be a sort of thing that goes full time. So
Right.
if the Malaysian players are able to take this full time and be assured that this can be a viable full time job, I'm pretty sure a lot of our players, our current Malaysian players, will definitely make it, if not to the highest quality like they have.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point, because what you're saying is that if we had the opportunity to treat it as a full-time job, that alone in itself, the level of players should be able to go up lah.
Yes.
Right, because your sole focus is, okay, I'm a futsal player, rather than, okay, I'm scared of getting injured because I need to go to work tomorrow. All this kind of smaller stuff that really kind of messes with the player's head lah.
Yep.
Right, and then of course the frequency. So I think also my chat with Ion previously is that professional players don't train once a day.
Yep.
Right, those in the MPFL probably train once a day because it's a second job, not a primary job lah. So when you do train professionally 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day, the number of hours that you put in I would say honing your skills will be something that is a lot better lah.
Yes.
Okay, very cool. So I think this is something that not a lot of players get, right? So the reason why the level of the sport is at a certain, I wouldn't say low level, but a relatively growing level, is because we are not in the position to treat it as a full-time job lah. Okay. Yeah. So before the arrival of Hirata to your team, right? I've watched all your games, so I would consider you a starter. But since his arrival, it's been tough for you to break into the first pair, right? So I know it's not the nicest topic to talk about, but I think it's something that players should understand, because a player of your level, because a lot of people probably look at you like a god, like a lot of the other players as well, especially those in the semi-pro leagues or amateur leagues, they will look at you like, oh my god, Josh, what a player, right? But then even a player such as yourself, playing in a team can, and sometimes is not listed as the first 5, right? And that can kind of mess with your game, mess with your head, right? So how have you approached that, I wouldn't say issue, but that issue, how would you approach it? And like, could you share us what do you think of that entire situation as a whole?
I think my thoughts on the situation are, because the first 6 games of the season, which is the opening 6, I actually managed to start almost all 6, or if not all 6 of those games. I think I've managed to show my quality during those games, and I think after the 6th game, for the second leg, I have not been able to start the rest of those games. And the reason for that would be because obviously Hirata came in, and he's an obvious starter for the pivot position in the first set. I think my thoughts on that are, instead of having the thought that, this guy just came in and he's taken my spot in the team, I think it's wise to probably dial down and sort of understand why an import player was brought in the first place. I think the purpose that he was brought in is to raise the quality and to raise the level of gameplay of futsal in Malaysia. So he has a significant amount of experience being in the AFC Asian Cup. His team has qualified for the World Cup, and he has experience across all competitions. And definitely, it's a type of experience that not any coach would want to bench.
Yeah,
so I
course.
think. Based on that aspect, I think I have to take the hit. But I have actually, we've been to a couple of those games together for my team, and I think we can safely say that I do enjoy watching those games, even though I'm not starting, because I get to learn so much about my team and how to improve my game. So I think while not being able to start those games, due to the unfortunate fact, that he's just, the bare fact is he's just better. He's just better,
Okay.
So I think it's a fair statement that I'll probably just have to learn, sit and learn and just be better. So once I'm able to prove that I have raised my level of game and coaches start to take notice, I think that would be the right time to shine. I'll earn my chance to prove
so
myself.
I think this is a very good point for not just professional players. I think players in general who enjoy futsal, I think this is one of the biggest problems, right? So let's say they believe they are decent, right? I think no one who plays these sports thinks they're shit, right? Most of them will be like, okay, I'm a good player. Then they walk into a team, right? When they walk into a team, it immediately becomes something like, okay, I should start, right? Let's say they do end up starting and they end up solidifying their place in the first 5, but then this is a team of, let's say, a level at, let's say, out of a 10, maybe a 2 out of 10. Then when they join the next set, for example, a better team or something like that, then they have to work their way into the first 5 again, right?
Yeah.
But not many players understand that is part of this process, right? The better you want to, the further you want to go, the more obstacles you have to go through, So I think a lot of social players get frustrated, or semi-pro players, or even pro players get frustrated with the fact that no, I only want to be in this team if I start. But that is not feasible, because it's a 14-man squad, but only 5 players play at the start, right? Rotational. 14-man squad is on game day, but 25 is in a team, right?
Correct.
So even if in your team, I've seen about maybe the same 14 being used, or at most rotated plus minus 2, maybe 16. But there are maybe 6 to 8 players who have never played any game. Yeah, so this is what it is. This is the sport, right? And players being frustrated about it, I don't think does anything for them. Rather than, they should just look at it as a challenge, rather than look at it as like, oh, the coach don't like me, my teammate don't like me, I don't get the support that I need. So do you agree with me on this?
Yes, totally agree.
Okay, so you think players are a bit too entitled also
In some way, yes.
Yes, okay. Can you give me any experience that you've had of entitlement? From any, you don't have to name drop, we don't have to do that, but situations that you believe that like players think that they're entitled to.
It's a bit tough for this one.
Okay, it's probably tough because he probably does have, but he can't name drop. But we'll leave it. If you do have an example, you can share with us, no problem. But no, not this time around.
Maybe not. This
Okay. I tried. So okay, that's very cool. So to sum it up, right? So in your futsal career as a whole, right? So you mentioned in 2019 you started with KL City, right? And then you had a break, I think, for that 1 year you didn't play.
Yep.
Right? And then you continued playing with One United, and then you got scouted to N9, right? So at N9, I think was when they called you, and then you played that season. And I think that was the season that like it worked for you, lah. Everything seemed to fall into place. You were scoring goals. You were starting. You were the main pivot in the team. And next thing you know, you're on the national team, and you have a podium finish in the MPFL, right? And all this was done in a span of 6 months.
Yep.
Right. So like, I think 6 months is quite a accelerated portion of time, right? For you to be able to do this.
Yeah.
So the question to ask is like how did you do this?
But first of all, it's not too bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it is very good. I think most players dream of having that start, of like, okay, I walk into the team, I start, I score, national team, podium finish. I think that is the dream for every futsal player.
That's true.
Right? But at the end of the day, what people need to know is what are the steps for you to get there lah. It's not like you woke up and then you're that player what.
Yep, I think definitely just to share a little bit of insight on my season last year, and why I thought personally that it was a breakout season. I think there were a few factors that came into play. First of all, the team that I was joining, Negris Milan, we were just a collective of players who probably weren't in it for the money. So what we were promised was a small stipend, a small allowance to cover our costs. We train about similarly 5 to 6 times a week, if not more, if not every day. But we were able to raise our level of game by just practice. We just stuck to the things that kept us solid as a team, and we just stuck to a game plan that probably got us through most of our season. The second thing I felt was that why it was the breakout season for me is because I was also grateful for the opportunity that was given to me. So I think most of the games, like you said just now, like I managed to start and I managed to prove myself, and I think it's very important that players get this time to prove themselves, prove their worth. So it's a all in or nothing moment, So you kind of have something to stake.
Yeah.
So it's whether the coach thinks you are ready or not ready, and for this part I cannot advise. It's down to your own performance, and if you do well, I'm pretty sure the coach will reinstate you for the next game, will start you again.
Okay. Alright, so just for those who are watching, and I think there are a lot of people who know of I guess Man United, MPFL, Joshua Lee, right? So what I think they would want to know is like what are your thoughts on like the matter of like, okay, so is it worth it to be a professional player? I know it's a tough question to ask because it also comes with the time of the season lah, in the sense of like, if it's worth it for you now, was it worth it for you 5 years later? Is it worth it for you 5 years down the road? Right? But in the current moment in time, as a player that you are, clearly I guess it's worth it for you lah.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's worth it for you? And because I know there are a lot of players who probably can play MPFL but choose not to. So why do you think there is that distinction?
I think it's very clear to certain coaches and certain players who are actually having an outside view, an outside perspective on who is willing to give up everything for the sport, and who is probably just in there to maybe get a little extra money, or just doing this as a way to probably pass time, or just doing this for the sake of fame, reputation. So I think when it comes down to the small details, like we said just now, I would say like recovery, tracking back, all these small little. How do you react when your opponent scores? How do you react when your teammate makes a mistake, a loose pass? All these small details make into probably how your approach is to the game.
Yeah.
So I believe that with this reason, I feel like you can differentiate those who are really in it for their love and their passion for the sport, and for those who just want to probably take this as a side job, just probably not take it further. And I feel like that attitude will be the key factor to probably whether they take that step further, or whether they just stagnate and just probably linger around that level, that quality level.
So I think in a nutshell, what you're saying is, how much do you love this game lah?
Correct, something like that.
Okay. If you really love it, then the sacrifice is worth it lah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but it is a sacrifice lah.
Yes, it's big sacrifice.
Yes. Okay. Trust me, I've heard quite a number of players mention this. It isn't a easy path to take, and the rewards do sometimes outweigh the cons, but at the same time, to reach the point of reaping the rewards, it's a lot of sacrifice lah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before we end, we will just go through maybe 1 or 2 questions, right? So the first question is, where do you think Malaysian futsal is headed? and like what are the things that you think should improve? I know just now you mentioned the fact that players should be full-time players for the level to go up, but other than that, what do you think?
I think in terms of quality, if we want to reach maybe the level of Thailand, Indonesia now is really picking up. I think as a Southeast Asian, to become a strong competitor in this Southeast Asian region, I think besides going full-time, I think we need to sort of bring in the technology that other countries have been implementing and have been investing on their team. So I think
so this like stat tracking and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think teams like JDT, Selangor Mac, they have the resources to sort of bring in this kind of technology to sort of improve their team performance and individual performance, and all these makes a huge difference to game day, especially like recovery and getting that extra 1% physically. It really can go a mile when you play on game day.
Okay, so it's also the investment into the sport lah.
Yes.
Right. So I think it goes without saying, right? So of course players should be paid well. That's number one, so that they can take it as a full-time job. The second thing is the investment into the sport. But I also do think that there is a significant gap in the sense of I would say grassroots leagues in terms of FIFA court. I wouldn't, maybe not under 5, under 8, but I think in Thailand and Indonesia, their under 14s, under 12 play 5-a-side FIFA courts.
Correct.
Yeah. So by the time they reach 18, they'll be destroying us lah. Because our open age category is still playing the small court leagues.
Yeah.
And Jago Kampung lah. It is true, right?
Yes.
Because we will get smashed if a 18-year-old from Indonesia who has been playing 6 years of FIFA court in a league setting, stop time, good refereeing, right, and then come and meet us who play a small court game of 15 minutes and a half of running clock, where the 4-second doesn't apply, the 5-meter doesn't apply. All these kind of small details, it really kills the sport lah.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, of course, yes, there's a lot that needs to be worked, but I think even on a social level, the level of the leagues need to go up.
Yes, definitely.
Right, because now the focus of the leagues is profit making. Right, so they get as many teams, as many players cramped up in a small court, and then they play as short amount of time as possible. So that you, for example, an hour of a court booking, you cut that in 2, and 4 teams play instead of 2.
Yeah, it's pretty cramped up,
right? So it does get quite I think too packed for them to actually learn anything, because I've coached for quite a while, and I realized that the small court game is not very much tactical.
Yes.
Right, so which is why when we go into the FIFA court after playing small court for so long, most players look lost, right? And then they struggle with, I don't know what to do with this space lah. So this, I think the next thing that people should be looking at, or I guess we should be looking at, or myself, is a league to be able to showcase that what futsal actually is, because I think there's a lot of beauty in the sport as itself, right? So that being said, okay, so we already know. So there's the money factor, the development factor, and also the investment factor lah, right? And I think these are the similar points that Ian also mentioned, but I think that's a work in progress lah. I don't think there's much that me or you can do much about now.
Yep.
Maybe in the future can, or maybe the steps that we're taking now might end up changing something in the long run, right? So let's go into something that you have a bit more control of lah. What does the future of Josh Lee look like?
As for now, I have been exploring a few options. I've also thought about going into coaching, but I think that's the sort of step and a sort of decision for the future that will probably eat into my decision making probably in the longer run.
Okay.
For right now, I still foresee my playing career to be continuous. I think I'm still developing as a player. I'm still learning my weaknesses, my strengths, I'm just leveraging on the four years of experience I've had in the scene and just trying to build on that, gain more confidence, gain more playing time. I think the future for me seems like I'll still be in the sport until
Couple more years?
Yeah, until my legs give out.
Okay, I don't see your legs giving out anytime soon, but we will see. I hope that we'll be able to see you in the national jersey maybe soon.
Hopefully.
we can hope, right? You already did it last season. So, I mean, of course, opportunity comes, you have to take lah.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so if anyone at home, right, does have any questions for Josh, you can just shoot them through our DMs, or you can even WhatsApp us on Instagram and just ask us if you want to know anything about what Josh has done, how he has done, whatever he has done. But I think that this was a very good sharing session, so that I think players can see into, or the viewers can see into the life, like a POV of a player lah, right? Other than just Ion, you yourself also are one of the prolific players in my opinion lah, right? So thank you so much for your time, and I hope to get you back soon, maybe in the next month or so, for a different kind of podcast that I have an idea for. But thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And as I mentioned, we'll see you next week for episode 8 of Powerplay, for everything and anything futsal.